Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. This is going to be fun. Facing an army of chaos, the combined forces of mainstream media, Hollywood, big tech, 12 to 16 years of universal public indoctrination, just about every nonprofit, non-government organization in the country, particularly those that rely on federal grants, as well as the 20 million deep state federal oligarchy or bureaucracy and its weaponized Department of Justice, Donald Trump won for a second, or is it a third time? So what happens now that America is unburdened by what has been? Well, during the campaign, prominent Democrats threatened lawfare to try and prevent Trump from taking office, even with 70 million plus voters behind him. These have ranged from 14th Amendment challenges for so-called insurrection to efforts to decertify state results or bully electors into going faithless, meaning they vote for somebody other than who voters picked. Of course, they tried to prosecute Republicans for these exact tactics, despite Democrats themselves doing them in 2016, but hypocrisy is kind of their thing. So even when the lawfare fails, the left has already announced they'll do everything they can to sabotage Trump, as they did from day one last time, most prominently with the Russian collusion hoax. MSNBC just this morning threatened to use, quote, civil society and institutions, meaning government-funded nonprofits, as a, quote, bulwark against Trump, calling it, quote, democracy between the elections. Yes, the Party of Democracy wants to cancel out a democratic election using government force. Thankfully, the left has now blown so much of its authority and credibility with the people that I suspect this will only work for New York Times subscribers. After all, if endlessly comparing Trump to a famous 1930s dictator did not work, that well is pretty much dry. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. I warned before the election of the things they are saving until after the election. Now they're going to have to jam everything out the door in the paltry 77 days of Joe Biden's lame duck, the period between the election and the new president. This could include last-minute regulations on energy manufacturing, could include executive orders assailing our First and Second Amendment rights. There's a long-standing Senate tradition not to appoint hostile judges, so-called midnight judges, when the presidency changes hand, but democracy between the elections may demand no less. Still, 77 days is almost out of the tunnel. With 4 years of a re-energized Trump, we now have the unique pleasure of enjoying. As for once he takes office, it looks like Trump will gloriously have a Republican Senate and a Republican House behind him, meaning he can get straight to work. As soon as he pardons J6 protesters and Ross Ulbricht, perhaps many more victims of the regime, one might hope he jumps into election security and voter ID, which is supported by 75% of voters, then on to mass deportation, starting with simply enforcing existing laws and letting them self-deport, then replacing income tax with tariffs, Elon's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, perhaps even major reforms to both the income tax and the Federal Reserve, both of which I've talked about in recent videos. The uniparty rhinos won't like it, of course, but then Republican voters just turned out 95% for Trump. Trump is the Republican Party. The rhinos can evolve or be gone. America just woke up from a very long nightmare. Let's get this party started. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.